Well, I think we're ready to start. So thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Kelsey Nager and I am the Employer Experience Coordinator at USD's Career Development Center. So I work with employers to get them engaged with career fairs, interview days, and info sessions like this, the City Year Info Session. So today we're super excited to have Adriana and Allison join us from the recruiting team of City Year to talk about their program and the opportunity that you could take after graduation. So just a few housekeeping items. First of all, this session is being recorded so that it can go on our YouTube channel after. If you would prefer to not have your face potentially recorded in this, please turn off your camera now. If you don't mind, no problem. If you are seeking Compass, Passport, or Connect points today, awesome. We will be using the Zoom attendance report for the points. So there's nothing you need to do in follow-up, but please do give us a few days to record those as we are doing it all manually since we're remote right now. Q&A layout, feel free to type any questions during the presentation into the chat and Allison from City Year will respond to those. But if you have questions at the end that you'd like to unmute yourself for or text in the chat, we'll answer those as well. So both formats are totally fine for us. And then also I'll be sending out a follow-up email after this event with some information from City Year, their contact information, and any other updates. So look out for that email after this event. But without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Adriana and Allison. So thank you for being here, and we're excited to see what you have today.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelsey. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So welcome, everyone. Thank you again for being here with us. We're going to be going over a brief introduction to City Year today and the role that we specifically recruit for. But really quick, before we dive right in, I wanted to introduce myself and my colleague, Allison. My name is Adriana Ryan. I'm a recruitment director based in San Diego. Pronouns are she, her, hers, and I graduated from UCSD in 2012, and then went on to serve with City Year Boston in 2012, 2013. I did get my master's from USC in nonprofit leadership and management, and I think the core experience with City Year definitely helped to refine a lot of my career trajectory and helping me guide me into the nonprofit sector, and ultimately led me to pursue a master's in the nonprofit sector. So really excited to share with you about the AmeriCorps member position in our organization, and I'll pass it over to Allison.
Hi everyone, I'm Allison. Pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am your City Year recruiter. I started just under a month ago, but I also served with City Year Boston in 2012, 2013. I graduated from Pepperdine in 2012, and I saw City Year as kind of a gap year before my real life began. It was definitely a very transformative year for me. I wanted to challenge myself by living in a new city, and also really wanted to do service work after undergrad. But I also got just a lot out of it personally and professionally, and we'll talk about some of those wonderful benefits that City Year has for you if you choose to apply. So really excited to talk to you guys today.
Awesome. So really quick, before we dive in, wanted to put a quick note in terms of how City Year is responding to COVID-19. So all of our City Year AmeriCorps members are currently virtual. We do have some sites where they might be doing hybrid service, so maybe in person a couple days and online the other days, but each site is working with their local community and the school district to ensure the safety of our core members and just adapting to the needs as things change. But I think one thing is clear, we're definitely going to need talented individuals like yourselves in the 2021-2022 school year to support our students, especially after they've had this gap in their learning. We saw that in the spring, and then we're also seeing the issue of access being brought to the forefront too, of students not having access to Wi-Fi or laptops at home. And so I think it's bringing to light some of these larger systemic inequities and how we need to bridge that gap for all of our students. And a couple of online meeting norms, like we like to include these, and I know Kelsey went over some of these at the beginning too. So if you want to have your video on, feel free to do that. Drop in any questions in the chat. Allison will be monitoring that, and then we'll also save time at the end for Q&A. And then just be sure to keep yourself on mute, and then at the end we can all take ourselves off mute and have a little bit of a dialogue during that Q&A. So we'll just go ahead and dive right in. So City Year is an education nonprofit, and at City Year, we believe all students can succeed. So as I kind of been alluding to in the previous slide with COVID-19, we understand too that there are also other systemic inequities in our system that are set up for not every student to be able to either succeed or reach their full potential. And so City Year understands that it's going to take a whole host of different systems to really come together and work towards a more just and equitable education system for our students. So we understand that City Year is just one piece of that. It's really going to take a lot of different systems coming together to solve this complex problem of education inequity. And so the position that we're specifically recruiting for and going to talk to you all about today is our City Year AmeriCorps member position. And so this is how we're working towards those systemic inequities and how we're trying to combat some of that by providing individualized tutors and mentors in the classroom to support students. And I'll share more about what that looks like, but the role itself is an 11-month commitment. So a lot of seniors that are graduating this spring will be applying now and then start summer of 2021 and go through June of 2022. And a couple of the requirements, you do have to be between 17 and 25. You have to be either a US citizen or a permanent legal resident. And then you have to be able to commit the full 11 months of service. So once you apply, if you're invited to serve, you'll be placed with a team at the site that you apply to. So we'll take City Year Los Angeles, for example. If you apply to City Year Los Angeles and you're invited to serve, you'll be placed with the team at a school site in LA. You'll be with that team at that school all day long, all week long, and essentially all year long, supporting your students and your school. You'll have leadership built in too, and I'll talk about what that support looks like in a little bit. But this next slide kind of touches on the holistic approach that we take in supporting our students in our schools. So core members are in the classroom as individualized tutors and mentors to support students in one-on-one small group academic tutoring, and then also social emotional support. We know how important it is to be able to address the whole child. We can't expect a student to perform on tests or grade levels if we're not addressing the whole child and providing the social emotional support that they need. And so that's where City Year core members can come in and provide that for the students that need it the most. So the teacher is still in the classroom. Again, you're working alongside students more in a one-on-one capacity. You'll do after school programs as well, so extended day activities, as we like to call them. So that's a big part of the program structure too. So really running robust enriching and engaging activities and opportunities for the students in that after school space. And then whole school activities as well. So, we ran attendance initiatives, events that really engaged the entire school. And then in terms of the students that we work with, so I touched on how you'll be in the classroom working one-on-one with students, and it'll be the same cohort of students that you'll work with all year long. And we identify those students that need additional support by these 3 early warning indicators. So in attendance, behavior, or course performance. And so obviously the student is, not showing up to school or, having behavior issues and getting kicked out of class. That's information that they're missing and instruction time that they're missing. So that's where the City Year core member can really come in and work with those students one-on-one and provide maybe some strategies or just some ways to work towards, small measurable goals to get that attendance and that behavior, and the same thing with course performance, get that back up to grade level. With course performance too, your uniquely positioned in the classroom to understand what the student's learning, the curriculum, and you're able to tailor that or adapt that to how that student learns best. And I think that's really, ultimately the goal too, is we know learning's not one size fits all. So you being in the classroom, knowing your students, you're able to adapt those lesson plans to something that might speak a little bit better to them in terms of how they receive that information. So I like this next slide too, because it kind of depicts a little bit of a better picture of what a day-to-day timeline could look like. So you're going to be there from early morning, greeting your students as they get to school, excited to see them, and just holding them accountable to if they're coming late or not showing up to school. That's an opportunity too where you can check in with them, make some attendance calls home maybe to see what's happening if they are coming to school late or missing school. Once the school day starts, you'll be providing that in-class support. So I was in an 8th grade classroom, and so I essentially went with my 8th graders to all of their core classes, and then within those classes worked one-on-one with my students. And so we primarily track in math and literacy, as you'll see on the timeline. Those are the 2 subject areas where we primarily want to track their improvement and their progress. But for instance, I was still in my 8th graders social studies and science class, so I was still supporting them in other academic areas, just primarily tracking in those 2 subjects. You'll have lunchtime. That's another opportunity to engage with students, or maybe sometimes just prep and get ready for the rest of the day. Teacher meetings, you'll get really close with your teacher and form a really good working relationship to just better understand what the teacher needs, and relay that feedback to from what your students might need or what they might be experiencing, and just keep that communication open between you and the teacher and the student. Once the school day is over, you may do some parent engagement, sharing the progress that their student is making. We also want to share in the positive progress that their student is working towards, and making sure we're informing the parents of those things, not just not coming to school on time. Once the school day is over, we'll do those after school programs that I touched on. So typically those were about 2 hours long. We do an hour of homework and tutoring help, and then another hour would be enrichment lessons. So we did a lot of art education in ours, field trips to local museums, just really using that space to really broaden their learning experiences and their learning opportunities. And so, as I've touched on before, you'll be placed with a team at the school that you'll be serving at, and your team will really be your support system. I still keep in touch with some of my teammates to this day, and you'll also have leadership built in. So you have a team leader and a program manager, and they're really there to just guide you throughout the entire year and be that liaison between the school site and also the team. So I constantly had one-on-one check-ins with my leadership team just to see how I was doing in my day-to-day work. But then also, personally too, because we're people too, and we have personal lives. So I want to make sure, we're communicating if we need anything there. And then also professionally. So those check-ins were also a time to check in with my manager and make sure that I was still working towards my professional goals, whatever those looked like. And so those were conversations that we had throughout the year, and we want to make sure that we're having those conversations to ensure that you're working towards your goals and using this year for whatever the next steps might be. And so that's why I tell people you don't have to want to go into teaching or pursue education to do our program. We really want this to be multifaceted and used for, to help build out that skill set for whatever those next steps might be. And then I'll just touch on, how unique City Year is and the model itself and how challenging it can be, but I think also how rewarding. So I think I went into this experience just knowing it was only going to be 11 months, and I gave it my all, and that's exactly what I got out of it too. So I tell people, it's definitely one of those experiences where it is what you put in. So I'll pass it over now to Allison for some of the benefits.
Thanks, Adriana. So as a City Year Corps member, you are eligible for many financial benefits during and after you serve, as well as wonderful benefits that you get throughout your year of service. So I'm going to talk about those today. So you will be eligible for a biweekly living stipend, and that is going to vary based on the location that you serve in. So it can go from $630, maybe that is more of like a Baton Rouge, Buffalo location living stipend, or up to $930. That can be more of our like higher cost of living areas like San Jose, for example. And then our closest location to San Diego is Los Angeles. So you would be eligible for a $500 relocation assistance if you choose to serve anywhere, really, because if you'd be relocating more than 50 miles. This was not available to me and Adriana when we served, but would have been, I'm sure, super helpful. And then also you are eligible for a Siegel Education Award of $6,000 upon successful completion of your core year. This is money that you can use towards any loans that you've accrued in your undergraduate career, or that you can put towards any future education expenses if you're thinking about grad school. Additionally, you will receive health insurance. This does not include dental. You also get time off. So we would get holidays off, but also some like personal time. So I know Adriana has mentioned that she had a couple of teammates that were applying for med school, and so they were able to take some time off to do those med school interviews. We also want to make sure that you're taking care of your mental health. So we also have an employee assistance program, as well as access to 24/7 counseling services. I know Adriana mentioned it is a hard year, so we want to make sure that you're able to take some time to give yourself some self-care as well. And then loan forbearance. This was super helpful to me. I know I still have a lot of loans from undergrad, and you don't have to pay them during your service year. So these were really wonderful benefits that we had access to. Additionally, each location might have some location-specific benefits. I know for Boston, we got a transportation card, so we didn't have to pay for the bus or the subway, and I think it even worked on like the train, which was really a wonderful thing to have covered. And then you'll find free or cost-effective things across the city as well. Additionally, once you become a City Year alumni, you will have access to over 100 school partnerships if you want to continue your education. A lot of people think, I don't want to become a teacher. Is it only education programs? No, we have things like public health, law. We do have a lot of education partnerships, but business school as well. So any field that you're interested in, we probably have a partnership. And I know some of those programs are also online as well. Probably more will be moving to online. And then a lot of those partnerships offer between 25 to 100% scholarships for our City Year alumni, as well as application fee waivers for City Year alumni. So you do have to apply to those programs and be accepted. But if you are, then you can become eligible for those scholarships. And then professional development. So we want to make sure that you're set up for success for your life after City Year, during your core year. So I know when Adriana and I were core members, we had a sponsor, Comcast, come in and do like a career day for us, where we had our resumes reviewed, did some interview practice. Because for me, I was like, how am I going to talk about this really awesome experience when I'm in an interview for a job? And so those types of days were really beneficial for me. But I know we had like a mentor program as well, which was really great. But we have a lot of alumni in all different fields, much like our university partnerships. Our alumni is a very diverse bunch. I'm kind of fall into that bigger government nonprofit sector of the pie, but we also have people that are in tech or business or in medicine or healthcare. So even if you don't want to go into education or even be a teacher, there are tons of really wonderful skills that you can obtain from your City Year. And then if you love City Year, if you want to keep being part of the City Year family, like Adriana and I did, there's room to grow here as well. You can come back as a staff member. We are a very large organization, and we have, different, I'm in recruiting. So if you want to talk to people about your experience, that's a great place to go. But we also have marketing, IT, development. So we definitely love our alumni to come back, and about 50% of our staff has served in City Year. So how do you apply to be part of the City Year family? You can go to our website, cityyear.org, and click the apply button. We do have a deadline coming up next Friday, November 13th, but we also have a couple more in the winter and spring as well. I think I mentioned in the chat, by our spring deadlines, a lot of our sites have already filled up. So definitely earlier is better if you have a site that you want to apply to, or even just a region or serve where most needed. You could have your notification before the Christmas holiday, and if you have, you're going to see relatives over the holiday and they're saying, hey, what are you doing after graduation? You can already have that question answered if you're ready to serve. So we try to make the application process pretty quick. As you can see, you should know within a month, about a month of applying. But the application itself is a couple short answer, a couple essay, and then we'll ask for a professional reference, just their contact information. But we're looking for candidates with experience in leadership, in tutoring, mentoring, working with youth, and experience working on a diverse team. So if you have those skills, definitely apply. And like I mentioned, we have 29 locations across the United States. Los Angeles is our closest one to San Diego. You could be like me or Adriana and move across the country to the East Coast. But we also have, Seattle, Denver are really popular sites, Chicago and like the Midwest as well. And then places like Florida, Baton Rouge as well. So we have a lot of really wonderful locations for you to choose from. Buffalo is our newest site. It was launched, I believe, last year. And then after you submit your application, the admissions team will contact you for an interview. That will be done over the phone, and then they will contact your professional reference directly for a reference form. And then you should be notified by email, like I said, within about a month of submitting your application. So be sure to check your email regularly, check in case it goes there. But it's also okay to reach out if you haven't heard anything by that date that was displayed. But we want to make sure that, we're being pretty quick with the turnaround of getting, letting you all know if you've been accepted to serve. So that is about it from us. I shared my contact form in the chat, but you can also feel free to reach out to me directly at my email as well. But we'd like to open it up for any questions in our last 5 minutes of our time with you.
I did want to go back to Erica's question about the location too. That's a great question. So again, we don't place you anywhere. You can choose where you want to apply, or if you do want to be placed, we can place you at one of our higher need sites. But in terms of competitiveness, the two sites that have been historically like a little more competitive are Seattle and Denver. I think just with like the younger demographic of folks that are wanting to move there. So I think definitely work with your recruiter, connect with Allison to see, if there's a particular site. But yeah, definitely the earlier you apply, the earlier you can move through, the application process and know if you'll be serving at your site, and then be able to reserve that spot, because yeah, by the spring, a lot of them did fill up. And no, all of our application deadlines will start at the same time. Everyone will start summer of 2021. The earlier you apply, the earlier you have, to prepare, move, all of that, or like just make prior arrangements, know where you're going to live and all of that. for folks that apply later than in the spring, it'll just be a quicker turnaround time, but everyone essentially is applying for the same start date of summer 2021. Great questions.
While students are typing, Adriana or Allison, would you like to share your favorite memory from serving?
Sure, I can share. So I worked with a fifth grade classroom, and fifth grade is my favorite. So that's kind of how I picked that age range to work with. And one day I was able to do a reader's theater with a few of my students. So for those that don't know, reader's theater is, it's like a short play that, you assign the roles to your students. And before we did a little bit of pre-work of like defining some of the words and kind of setting the stage for the lesson plan. So I prepared a lot for this lesson. And I didn't know how it was going to go. But I told my students, this is a play, like I'm your audience, you've got to like make it exciting. And initially, the first couple students that started reading, it was very like monotone. So I was a little bummed, but then one of my students, I think I assigned him like the role of the king. He just like really like went into this role, got this like really deep husky voice. And we all like started laughing and having a good time. And then the rest of my students kind of like had like accents or like put their own little flair onto their character. So it really was just a wonderful, experience of preparing really well for the lesson plan and then having it go really, really well. So.
Thank you. That's so cute. I love how you got into it. We have another minute, so if there's any students who have more questions, we'd love to be able to answer them. I also put a link. Oh, there's a question. So during the day, are you more of a teacher's assistant, and then after school is when you plan activities and everything?
So we want to differentiate between like a teacher's assistant, like you're not there to support the teacher necessarily, you're there to support the students. So if you're, making copies or running errands for the teacher, like that's where your leadership team can step in and be like, that's not their, responsibility. Really the goal is to work one-on-one with your students in a tutoring and mentoring capacity. So the teacher is going to be in the classroom and can focus on teaching the rest of the students that maybe don't need additional support. And then the students that need maybe a little more one-on-one support with their City Year Corps member can get that either directly in the classroom, or maybe sometimes you might pull them out of the classroom away from distractions and work with them in a more private setting. It just kind of depends, but you'll work closely with the teacher to identify like what the students need that you're working with specifically. And then again, provide that feedback too of like, if a student's having a difficult time because something's happening at home, you're that liaison too, sometimes between the student and the teacher, just because you're a little more well-positioned and equipped to relay that. And sometimes students don't feel comfortable sharing that with the teacher, or may not feel like it's, the right setting to do so. So that's kind of the differentiation. But yes, in terms of the after school activities, that's where you're really planning a lot of, those enrichment activities. But you can also do a lot of lesson planning with the one-on-ones that you're working with your students during the day. That's where you can adapt a lesson plan. Like if a student's a more visual learner, you can create that cool new lesson plan that might speak to them a little bit better. So there can be some lesson planning that goes on throughout the day, but oftentimes like working with eighth graders, it was kind of just be able to teach the math lesson from a different perspective too, or, pause and take some more breaks if they need more, more breaks. So yeah, hopefully that helps, Jessica. Thanks for the question.
Okay, I want to be mindful of time. It is 1 o'clock. So if there's one last question, we can get it in. But otherwise, I will send out Allison's email address and follow up as well. So you can always ask her more questions too. if there are any other questions, thank you everyone for coming, and hopefully you'll be able to apply for City Year either by November 13th or by the next deadline. And we hope that you're able to serve with them.